Hello and welcome to the Engerati studio live at European Utility Week 2016. My name is Ade and today I'm joined by Allan Connolly, CEO of Aclara. Allan, how are you doing?
Ade, I'm great. Thanks for having me on the show.
There's been a lot of activity at the Aclara booth. What's the feedback been like? What are some of the key takeaways you're getting?
For us, this is a great event. This is our first time. Aclara's purchased a lot of businesses in the last 12 months and we hadn't really had a chance to be at the European Utility Week conference in the past. So for us it's a learning experience. Met a lot of people from other parts of the world we don't normally see in our sort of North American home. But also interested that a lot of the sort of trends in the industry are the same, regardless of the geography. Dealing with much more complex grids and much harder to run utilities is sort of a unique theme we're seeing.
Okay, and before going into too much detail there, I was just wondering, for the benefits of whoever's listening into this interview now, just give us a bit about your journey, where you've come from and how you've ended up as CEO at Aclara.
Okay, like yourself, Eddie, I'm an engineer by background. I started my career in Australia where I grew up, working in a steel mill. Good experience, but didn't want to work in a mill for the rest of my life. Went back to grad school, did a doctorate in engineering and controls and signal processing. From there I was recruited by GE and they moved me to the US to work in their corporate R&D center. And I ran a lab working on aircraft engines and energy. They were both fabulous businesses. And I had to make a big decision. Aircraft engines, energy. And, energy had a sort of more entrepreneurial appeal. Aircraft engines are fabulous, but taking 10 years of your life to design one product was probably not something that was cut up for me. And I really like the sort of energy sector as a much more sort of entrepreneurial, faster moving sector. So I moved into the energy business, started to do a lot of deals and sort of M&A work with GE, and that sort of got the bug. Left GE 10 years ago to start doing my first water gig. So energy to water was a fascinating transition. It sort of kept me in that infrastructure space. And then I really wanted to run a company, preferably that was technically complex, but also had a water or an energy focus. And I was lucky enough to get an opportunity to run Aclara. It was purchased in 2014. They were looking for a new CEO and a president. And it's a technically challenging company, but it also has a focus in gas, electricity, and water. So for me, it was a perfect fit. Once the opportunity came up, I jumped at it.
So you like technical challenges but complex systems, right?
Absolutely. So infrastructure is a fundamental need in sort of modern society, but at the same time it's technically challenging. So I like that complexity of major projects and at the same time the technical bent. And it's not getting any easier. The more these sort of systems evolve, the more demands we put on our infrastructure, the smarter they've got to get. And it's not just the electric utilities. Water and gas are facing the same pressures. There's a lot of opportunity to make those systems smarter.
Tell me about the acquisition strategy at Aclara. Yeah. Look, my thinking is that it reflects your entrepreneurial spirit and your almost ongoing battle to stop, prevent something from ending, just, expanding and creating new opportunities.
It's a great question. We don't view ourselves as a meter company or a communications company. Aclara came into this industry back in the 80s from a communications sort of systems perspective and saw the sort of challenges that you had to solve to help a utility run their network. So our view's always been slightly different, and as the industries have become more and more complex, we saw an opportunity to provide a much more cohesive solution to the industry. If you think about it, we put these incredibly complex communication systems into a utilities area, and then people only want to read a meter with it. And it's just a waste of an obvious investment. And we saw it as an opportunity to provide much richer sensors and analytical software to really provide real information to a utility in real time to help them actually run the grid versus just send a bill. And that's really the history of Aclara. We're focused on what we call becoming a smart infrastructure solutions provider, and that is robust, secure communication systems that provide actionable data. And so the acquisition strategy was, yes, we bought a medium company, but not for reasons that are fairly typical. We bought a very sophisticated installation services company that has great real-time tools to help them implement one of these smart grid systems. And then we've started to buy, our most recent acquisition was Tollgrade, very high quality precision power monitoring devices. the central theme, we want to be able to provide a turnkey solution. Metering's there, obviously communications is there, but also devices that provide much more relevant data for what's happening in the grid. And that's sort of the evolution of the history. We haven't stopped. I think there's a lot more we can do both internally. Aclara spends 10% of our revenues on product development and technology, but we're also actively acquiring technology companies that fit with that longer term vision.
So to bring it back to the metering conversation, and I know, like you said, it's much more than just metering, right? We had a debate on the evolution of smart metering and even ran a poll as to whether people thought, we need to get into edge intelligence, and you have some very strong views.
Yes. Well, it's fascinating, having bought the GE meter business. It was the first electric meter business. You walk into the original factory and you can see Thomas Edison's notebook, you can see the original mechanical, chemical meters, and you see how the industry's evolved. We've gone to utilities that have these old mechanical meters that still work. They're 40, 50 years old. If you want to just do billing, it works, but we don't view it as a billing device. We view it as a sensor at the edge of the grid. And so I think you've seen this history of AMI where we started with these mechanical meters, 30, 40 year lifespan, electromechanical meters, more information, now maybe it's a 15 to 20 year life, full solid state electronic meters, billing every 15 minutes, now it's maybe a 10-year life. But the next evolution is coming, and that is, it's not going to be just a meter in the home or a commercial application to measure usage. It can be and will be a very sophisticated device to tell you what's happening at the edge of the grid. And it's at the edge now where most of the complexity is coming.
There's a lot of talk about distributed energy systems, so I feel like I've probably interrupted you there. Please, tell me.
It's great lead-in. As you look at how the sort of power grid in particular has evolved, you've got a lot more photovoltaic, a lot more wind, and it's only going to increase. The economics of PV, the economics of wind are continually displacing traditional power generation. This year was the first year where there was more distributed energy than coal. The fact that we displaced coal globally with distributed energy is an amazing concept. But that's obviously had amazing environmental benefits, but it brings with it incredible complexities. You've now got, instead of the traditional big central power plants and distributed usage, you've got distributed generation and distributed usage. And that's a much harder grid to run. And this is why we look at the meter not as a meter. We look at it as that device we now really need to tell us what's happening, where and when, so you can help a utility decide where am I going to dispatch power, where are my problem points going to be, how do I actually manage this much more complex grid. That's what we view a meter as, and that's the evolution of the company. How do I put that infrastructure in place to help a utility deal with that complexity?
Wow, look, I think there's only one place to, or better still, one way for me to end this interview, because I feel like we've got quite a good picture here of the rationale and also just how this fits into the context of the industry. So my question to you is, what can we expect in 2017? Are we going to see more acquisitions, perhaps pushing the boundary of metering even further beyond the grid edge?
We've got a solid sort of long-term strategic plan what we're executing to. Over the next couple of years, you're going to see a significantly more sophisticated device being sold as our meter, but you're also going to see more devices like TollGrade looking at power quality monitoring throughout the grid, distributed energy monitoring systems that we want to develop, and in parallel, we're doing similar things in gas and water, helping them with pipeline integrity and with water with conservation and loss. So all three utilities have the same complexity issues. What you'll see out of us is sort of innovative technology to help those utilities deal with that complexity.
Well, thank you very much, Allan. It's been a pleasure to speak with you.
Likewise, thank you for the time. It's been a great interview.
And thank you as well for tuning into this interview. If you'd like to hear more about smart metering, grid edge intelligence, and getting the most out of the distributed energy system and energy system disruption, please check out the other interviews on our screen. Thank you.